In today's video, we are making this autumn leaf bowl. Absolutely perfect for the fall season. Let's jump right in. Okay, so for this project, we are obviously going to need a ton of autumn leaves, which I have right here. I have my epoxy resin. I'm using deep pour, and I'm also going to use my bubble removal machine from Resinous. And lastly, I have these two plastic bowls. One is a smaller one is a bigger one, and that's where we're going to cast this bowl in. Now, I have to say, I am quite skeptical about this and how this is going to turn out. I have seen Nick Zametti, I think, do this on his channel before, and usually when you do projects like this, you want to turn it and sort of finish it. Obviously, I don't know anything about wood turning or epoxy turning, and my knowledge on the subject is extremely little, as you can tell, and we won't be doing any of that. But what we will be doing is essentially cast using these bowls and see what we're left with. We might have to do a ton of sanding, so happy days on that. But yeah, let's get mixing and let's get started. So I'm mixing up my Jade Diction Officials resin. I am using the deep pour because this project is going to use a lot of resin, and I want to be able to do this fairly quickly with fewer layers. So I'm going to link everything in the description below along with my discount codes. Okay, once my resin is mixed, I have let it go into my Resinous machine just to make sure I get all bubbles out. And I'm going to start prepping the bowl. So what I'm going to do is start placing some of the leaves into sort of in between the two bowls, and my plan is to then go ahead and pour some resin down the side, like once again in between the two bowls, and we'll see how this goes. Like I said, I don't really know what I'm doing with this one, but yeah, I love experimenting, so we will keep our fingers crossed with this project. Okay, once I have some amount of leaves down, I'm going to go ahead and pour in a batch of resin, and then I'm going to push down the bowl. So as I put the resin down, I know that some of the leaves are going to move about and float and do their own thing, which is fine. I'm just, this is going to be a rustic bowl, and I obviously cannot control a great deal of what happens underneath this top bowl. So yeah, we're going to embrace the chaos. So I've poured some of the resin down. It obviously is not enough. I'm going to go ahead and mix up some more, and that will be probably my first layer. Now at this point, I am trying to sort of position the leaves in the bowl because I don't have too much resin, so I can do that. But once the bowls are quite stuffed with resin, I won't have the luxury to be able to move it around quite as much. And I think the more times I'm lifting and fiddling with these bowls, I'm introducing more and more bubbles, which is quite counterproductive, to be honest. Okay, so now that the inner bowl is starting to float up because of the resin that I've just put in, I'm going to go ahead and put some tape all around the bowls just to sort of secure them to each other, so it doesn't float up completely as I continue to fill it up with resin. So that's the plan. Okay, so I'm going to once again play around, put some more leaves from the side, and I'm just going to keep doing the same and filling this up until I'm happy. Now once again, because the resin is between the two bowls, there's really not much I can do to get rid of any bubbles. I can't torch it, I can't heat it, I can't literally I can't spray any alcohol, and I can already see that there are a ton of bubbles coming up, probably because of the leaves and because of me fiddling with the bowls earlier. Unfortunately, there's not much I can do about them, so we are going to have to live with those. So once my bowls are filled up to the bit where I want them to, I'm going to have to fashion something to sort of weigh them down, weigh the inner bowl down just so it's not floating up top. And what better than just some heavy bottles of resin to do that? Okay, so it has been several days. Because this is deep pour epoxy, it does take a while to cure, and I literally left this alone almost for 5 days. And yeah, I want to go ahead and pull the tape now and see what we have. Okay, so now that the tape is off, I can go ahead and start pulling away these balls from each other. I'm going to start with the inner one. Now, because these are really thin plastic balls, like, you know, literally the cheap ones, there's a lot of give in it, so you can kind of bend them, which makes life easier, which helps you get the suction out of the resin. So yeah, so it's not too bad unmolding this. On second thoughts, I'm thinking I could have used mold release, but then again, I mean, who remembers to use it before the project? I'm usually too excited in the beginning and I completely forget about it. It's always a hindsight thought for me. But anyway, so like I said, it's not too bad, and the little one will soon pop right out. Okay, so the inner ball is now out. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing and unmold the outer ball from this. Okay, so now that the ball is out, we are heading to the fun part, the part that I absolutely love, which is sanding. So obviously there's a ton of leaves sticking out at the top, and I'm gonna have to sand this down. I'm using my Orbital Sander with 80 grit, and that's it. I'm gonna sand away. Finally, several sanding discs later, this seems nice and smooth, and we are ready to go on for the next bit. So now that this is sanded, I am thinking that I want to use some spray paint to cover up the area with all those massive bubbles. So I'm just going to fog some gold spray paint on the inside, just a tiny bit, to cover up some of those bubbles. I mean, they're not ideal, but this is my way to sort of salvage this little ball. Make sure you're using spray paint in a well-ventilated area, and make sure you have your respirator on. Would you have done this step? Would you leave it as it is? Do let me know in the comments. But yeah, that's just me fogging some of that area right there. I'm not doing all of it. I do want to leave the clear area, so it's just the sort of like an inner circle that I'm fogging, and I'm going to leave this spray paint to dry. Now that the spray paint is dry, I'm going to go ahead and use some lacquer to spray over on the bit that we sanded, just to bring back the shine of the resin. You could, I suppose, go over and brush on some resin, but this I thought was an easy way of doing this, so I went ahead and sprayed some of that. And okay, so I have a bit of a cavity in the middle, so I'm going to go ahead and fill that up with some resin. So I'm just going to pour some resin in the center of the ball, so that takes care of that little hole that I have. I think that's from the vacuum that was formed between the two balls. But yeah, this should take care of that little bit there. Just using my little popsicle stick to make sure that the cavity is filled with resin, and just spreading it out to the center. I'm going to give it a little torch and pop the bubbles and let all of this dry and cure. And finally, this ball is now all complete. Could it have been better? Yes, had I not had the whole bubble situation. But I do feel like this technique of sort of sandwiching resin between two balls does work, which means that one could possibly make a ball of many things, like I'm thinking like candy and stuff. But yeah, for now, this is what this looks like. I actually quite like it. I know it's not perfect, but I mean, I like things that are not perfect. And it's still beautiful. It's a bit rustic. Let me know what you would do differently, and make sure you like, comment and sub, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.